Should you read A Fire Upon the Deep? Well, guess what? Richard and I, we read it, so you don't have to. Wait, maybe you will have to. We'll see.
Probably should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll get into if we recommend this or not. We're going to give you a quick spoiler-free summary, spoiler-free the entire video, then the pros, cons, what we rated it, and finally, should you read the book? Want to get into this?
I'm ready.
This book, giving the spoiler-free summary, is by Werner Vinge. He won the Hugo Award for this novel. It came out in 1992.
I'm always a big fan of the Hugo.
You
That is the
love your
award
Hugo.
that I always look to.
And it's pretty much correct most of the time.
Yeah.
And Werner Vinge, so he wrote this, and there's also a prequel and a sequel that he published later. But this is the first book that came out. I think it was intended as a solo, but then stuff was added on a little bit later. But this book itself, A Fire Upon the Deep, it's a definition of a sci-fi space opera. There's galactic battles. It's wide in scope. The world's incredibly large. There's such incredible alien species. It's super interesting. And if you're looking for that to scratch your itch, this has it all. This is basically space.
If you read sci-fi to confirm your own stupidity, definitely read this book.
Oh, 100%.
I felt like a moron reading this. I had a dictionary next to me because I had to look up concepts and scientific theories. It was hard.
Yeah, this book takes place in 3 general locations. There's one on this medieval planet where there's these dog/rat-like fascinating creatures, alien creatures. And then it also takes place on this hub planet, a relay planet where all these different spacecraft go to. And thirdly, it takes place in space, the ship going across in space. So you get your itch on these different planets and in space. You follow a human character. There's alien characters. There's a lot going on. And I'll just say it's also split into 3 parts. And there's some climactic points at the end of these parts. So if you like that kind of pacing, there's a lot going for it. But getting into the pros and cons of this. Now, you want to do that?
Yeah.
Before we do touch on that, Rich,
we got to do a little shameless self-promotion that we actually did this book and we reviewed it with our Patreon subscribers over on our exclusive Discord, where I think that conversation was like 4 or 5 hours long of a book club.
This
and
book
it was a
needed
lot of fun. Oh, yeah. So if you want to support our channel, help us out to make more content and pay our editor.
Please, sir, I want some more.
Go ahead, check out our Patreon down below, and you'll join up to our exclusive Discord and discuss books with us every month. It's a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah.
And let's get right into the pros and cons.
All right, pro time. What are some pros of this book, Rich?
Okay, hands down, the first #1 pro is the world building. Oh my God. This man literally sat down and said, hey, I have a problem with how AI is portrayed in actual sci-fi because it never makes sense on a conceptual level.
Yeah.
And so he built a world where AI and humanity could exist in some fashion, because he's a believer of the singularity, and that once AI gets to a certain point, basically human life really can't exist at that point, because they will go AI and computers will go beyond human understanding to the point where it wipes us out.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
So he created a world that doesn't happen.
It works.
Exactly. And such a fascinating system of the galaxy and how the science works of it, where literally physics change depending on how close to the center of the galaxy you are. Jesus.
The farther out means you can travel at light speed, whereas there's these depths in the middle that called the slow zone, where you can't travel faster than light. So space travel takes thousands and thousands and thousands of years.
Yeah.
So there's these different layers to it. So cool. So
yeah,
cool.
And then beyond that, the best part of the world building, I think for you, was a alien creature that we are introduced to pretty darn early on. So light spoilers for chapter 3 type thing.
Yeah, or very early you find out about
very
this
early.
alien
This is
creature.
just the nature of it, nothing plot wise. But this creature is called the Tines, and they are a dog-like pack being. They're a hive mind. They operate as a single unit with individual animals as kind of its parts.
Yeah, so not even, it's Hive in a unique niche sense.
Exactly.
It's Hive-esque, not where they all have one brain.
Yeah.
All the members of the pack contribute to the being. It's just, and then a lot of plot things happen that Werner Vinge uses really well with his world building to make the plot interesting. And it's, wow.
I was sitting there for a lot of times just thinking about how I wanted to see this kind of creature in different settings, because I thought it was such a good world, and I just wanted to see it more explored. And that as I'm going through the book, that's what I was so enjoying, is seeing how this creature actually fundamentally is different than how anything else alive functions. And it was fascinating to see how it operates with others.
And that's not even to mention there's these other cool alien creatures won't get too much into, but they're basically plants, and you'll learn more about them. But it's just so cool.
I don't know about you, but when you watch like a lot of sci-fi shows, like you'll typically see like basically everyone's human, and then there's the occasional like purple dude or like squid looking isk thing,
Some alien, but his name's unique. It's like Ron.
Yeah, but mostly they're all humanoid. Nothing really looks too alien.
Yeah.
In this, and that happens even in most books. So this one, they are aliens, like proper aliens, and it made it so much more fascinating to read and far more interesting than just humanoid-ish creatures with like different colored skin or a weird ear.
Yeah, no, they're actually unique creatures, and it's not just, hey, it's different color hair, or this one has a big nose. It's so much more than that, and there's the evolution is explained. It's a lot. It's great. Okay, it's great.
But
so
that's a big pro.
That's a huge pro, and I'd say second to that would be the stakes of the story. The stakes immediately feel, holy crap, how are we getting out of this one, buddy? How is this gonna end? So there's this threat, and you feel on edge, and you feel this threat ever present throughout the story. So you're always, since the very first, the prologue, you get introduced to this threat. And again, this is prologue. It's the AI. And AI is looking to take over the galaxy. And how the hell are they? This is a super intelligent AI beyond our understanding. And it's written in such a way, which brings to another pro I want to toss out at you, the writing.
Oh, God. Yeah. If we want to move on to that pro, the writing is definitely written by someone who understands physics and science. Like I would need to look more, especially into him as a background. I want to know more about his other works, but the guy is definitely, he's an expert. He's an expert in his field, and especially in writing sci-fi. So you definitely feel like you're learning a lot of different scientific terms and just evolutionary terms. I think the best example was the parallax view thing. It was a small thing, but there was a moment where a character says something like, oh, let me get a parallax view of this thing. And I had to look, like, you looked it up, I looked it up, you told me about it, and a parallax view is a view taken of an object from two separate locations triangulating on an object to get sense of depth of field and all this.
Yeah, who knows that word? Who knows that? I don't know that word.
But we learned. We learned something from this book. That was great.
The descriptions were so on point, and this entire book will have you feel dumb.
Yeah.
Like, I said that wrong. Like, have you feel dumb isn't even a sentence. That's how small I am compared to this novel.
My smooth brain make me feel dumb.
Very dumb. Like, this book is intelligent. The guy is smart, and he's so smart that the romance is terrible, by the way. you know a guy's a genius.
Slide right into cons.
No. I want to stay on pros for a second, but I just had to throw that dig. Like, a sci-fi author's amazing when they can't write romance for crap. Now, I couldn't either, to be fair, but especially, like, you get the sci-fi genres not for your romance. Neither is this, but I want to stay on pros. I had to throw that dig out. Come on. Another huge pro. What would you say before I brush up on another?
Let's see. Went over stakes, the world building.
Yep.
Those are my biggest those were my biggest pros for this book.
I guess another I've written down is kind of cheating. It's kind of the ones we just talked about, where it's thought-provoking and clever. Just because of how well it's written in the world, it's super thought-provoking, and you'll read this book and you'll need to talk about it like for 5 hours in a book club with Tutor Ramble on their Patreon. But this is one of those.
Part 2.
No, we're not talking about this one again, but future books. But this is something that you need to get into like a 6-hour conversation with somebody with. You finish this book and go, let's break this down, right? So that's where it comes in handy that we read this together. So it's thought-provoking and clever. And also, I want to throw in another one in there. Along with the stakes, the overall plot weaves together with the world building so interestingly. With the Tyne creatures, with how the space works as well, and the different zones. It ties together with the world in a compelling way and leads you through. Do you want to...
That perfectly said.
Okay.
Exactly.
Perfect. That means get into the con.
Get into the con.
Romance aside, romance is an easy one to throw away. But
now this is a standard sci-fi con. It's just how it is. Characters could be better. That's just generally how sci-fi goes. Is the world is awesome and the characters are
wait
not as
rewind music. I do actually want to say I didn't mind the small romance in this that much. I don't know why I made fun of it. There's a small romance scene which it's actually not bad. It's fine.
It's fine.
It's fine.
But also I laughed at the moment because I was like, this is the sci-fi moment that I was expecting.
It's so tropish.
Oh yeah.
That you're just like, okay, yeah. But it's not bad. It's not bad. Sorry. Before you were going into that, you were talking about characters.
Yeah, characters. Some are better than others, but there's definitely not that sense of depth and character growth in some of the big main characters that you would kind of expect from a fantasy novel per se. Fantasy normally does a really good job at doing character arcs. I would say sci-fi does a really good job at like world building arcs. The world goes through a character arc basically. Fundamental change in the universe type stuff. That's what sci-fi often does, or societal arc, like a societal change, but doesn't do as well for characters.
Right.
So
does good at the wide scope but not narrow.
Exactly. So I think some of the characters were definitely interesting, and a couple were really good. There was one in particular that we got into spoiler wise, where it's more of an antagonist, went through a far better like character journey than some of the protagonists.
Yeah, let's not spoil anything.
Yeah, we're not spoiling anything there, but like,
okay. Yeah, there's some standout characters, but overall they lean toward more static than dynamic characters, where most stay relatively flat. Not all of them, but if you're looking for anything super juicy and to get characters you just fall in love with, no, you won't. You won't.
Yeah,
they're not bad characters. They're not bad. They're just not exemplary.
I always like to say,
why did I say exemplary? Can you just shut me up sometimes when I try to use big words? Like, I feel like I have to use a big word. I will say,
you're reading more and you're starting to use big words now. It's pretty nice.
But I said exemplary like a freaking moron. Who says that word in normal conversation? Sorry.
At least you didn't say like Excelsior or something.
The hell was that?
Stan Lee.
Oh, okay. So characters, that's one con. What would you say is another con? Or want me to throw one at you?
Yeah.
Okay. Another con would be the pacing. So
yeah, I'll feel that.
I finished part 1 of this book and told Rich, because I read it earlier than him, because I'm just a faster reader, generally a better person.
Okay.
Generally. So I read part 1 of this book and told Rich this could be my new favorite book. Do you remember this?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I was saying this could be my all-time new favorite book. The world is incredible, and I am hooked. Again, this book's broken into 3 parts. First part had me in. Even second part, as I was going in, I was still loving it. But the part 2 in the novel drags on for far too long, and the part 3 of the novel is far too short. I'm using far more hyperbolic, but it's just the part 2 extends too much to where you're like, okay, it's stretching. You almost lose the interest a bit, and when this conflict arises, which again, not going to spoil. Let us know if you want us to have a spoiler talk on this, by the way. Comment below.
Comment below if you want a full spoiler talk of the video, and we'll look into doing that a little later.
This is just more, should you read this book, right? We'll give you that answer. So with this, the pacing goes on too long in part 2, and the payoff felt a little bit, another kind of throw on. The ending didn't get me as much. It didn't nail it, and can't say anything else other than that, because we want to keep it very light on spoilers. But for me, it started off phenomenally and then dragged on with the pace. Not bad, not poor, just I was loving it so much, and then I just liked it.
Yeah, it was a satisfying ending for me, but it definitely didn't defy my expectations. It wasn't like a surprise ending where I was super shocked, where the world building was shocked me. I was really shocked with how everything was building, going together, that the ending to me was like expected.
Okay.
And so it fell more into the sci-fi trope ending.
Yep.
I thought it was a creative and interesting end, so I did like the ending.
More than me, probably. Right?
Yeah. I think in our discussion we kind of like had different ideas of how it actually ended in what was I think I had my own idea of how it functioned, and it made way more sense to me, where you didn't it didn't click in your head. You didn't have your own idea, or your own idea of how it ended didn't work.
Right.
Something like that.
Right. And would you say any other con on top of that?
No, other than that, I mean, it's hard to read. This could be a con, it could be a pro. It just depends on what you're looking for. But if you want to like put on a book, on an audiobook while you're driving to work,
no,
not this book. No. This is not an audiobook book. This is not an audiobook book that you put at 2 times the speed, or 1.75. If anything, 0.5 speed, and repeat over and over again with a dictionary.
And repeat, let's go back a couple seconds ago where you said audiobook book.
This is not an audiobook book. Yeah.
You redundant pieces. Audiobook book, the books you read. So that I also had that difficult read, so it's written very well, but also it's hard to read because it's written that well. And I want to differentiate this. It's not Tolkien-esque prose where it's the beauty of it and you get enthralled and it's just poetic. This is more just very intelligent words. It's scientific, words like that. And yeah, so I think that covers pros and cons. Want to give your rating, Richard?
Yeah. I gave it, for once, we're not being like all pedantic and tiny little numbers. It's an 8 out of 10.
8 out of 10 for you. That's a great score.
Rankings of
your breakdown.
Yeah, I'm a breakdown.
Because we have 5 categories. That's how we get our total score. You can check out specific how the rating system works in the description below. But that's your 5 score, and your total score from the 5 categories. I gave this, and I purposely gave it this number. I edited one of the categories to make it to this number, just to show how I feel about the book. My total score is 6.99.
Nice.
No, not in that way.
Nice.
Okay, not in the number way. Just the fact that it was a 7, and I was just like, I just can't say the word 7. I'm just way too. I brought out your side of you. That's that elite side, being like, no.
Yes.
Not give it. We have to be strict with our ratings. And I just had too many complaints to say 7, because 7's what I consider like good. Like, oh yeah, good book. It's still okay. Let's get into the last part then of should you read it. Would you recommend to read to people?
It's a recommendation with a caveat. Okay. This is definitely, if you love, so let's say you've read Dune before and you've loved the world building of it, read this book. It's going to be great. You're going to love it. If you're new to sci-fi, this may not be your entry into sci-fi. That would be I think the caveat.
That's a good caveat.
If you don't normally read sci-fi and you're like, oh, I'm going to try reading sci-fi here, maybe this isn't this is not your starting sci-fi book. I'd read something a little easier maybe to get into it. But if you're a diehard sci-fi fan, it seems to be a mandatory read for that type of world building.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Even though I liked it I liked it a point less than you.
Yeah.
1.01 points less than you. So it is very well written, world building. If you're a sci-fi fan, read this book. Definitely. If you're a sci-fi fan, definitely read it. I lean more toward fantasy, so my bias is coming out when I rate it a little bit lower. With some of the I focused more on, you could see my character score. World building, look at our world building scores. They were 9.5 each of us. Yeah, stunning. But just my emotion and my character investment lowers a little bit, which lowers the total score. For you, wasn't lowered as much. So all in all, how many thumbs up, Richard?
A solid 1.5 thumbs up.
You know what? It probably deserved that half. Very nice. So 8 out of 10s are 1.5 for you. Got it. Now we know. Well, hey, thanks for watching that video. Give a little like, subscribe down below. For the 3rd time, because I heard this say things 3 times, and then people get stuck in their head. Join our frickin' Patreon.